Hi YouTube, thank you so much for watching. For today's video, we're actually going to talk about milk storage. So this is something I know that you're really going to enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe with the button on the bottom, and thank you so much for watching.
Mommy, did you know?
So your milk storage is actually just as important as your milk preparation and your usage. So I'm just gonna jump right in. Just so you know, prepared formula is good for about 2 hours after you prepare it and you get it all ready. After the baby starts feeding, you want to discard it after 1 hour. So for formula, it's 2 hours good after you mix it, but once the baby starts that feeding, you have to toss it after 1 hour. And I know that sometimes it's like, oh man, the baby only had, half of the bottle. But it's better to just be safe, to make sure that your baby is safe, and to toss the rest of it. For cans of formula, if you store it in a cool and dry indoor place, they're usually good until the recommended date. But once a can is opened, you have to use it within 30 days. Now for breast milk, it's really simple. I like the 4-4-4 rule. Really they're ranges, but I think 4-4-4 is a little bit easier. Basically, you can store freshly pumped milk at room temperature for 4 hours. Really simple, right? That works so well if you're in the hospital, you're pumping, you can use it for the next feeding. It's good for 4 days in the fridge. Let's say you pump a little bit and you want to have a little reserve so you can go to work tomorrow. It's okay for the next day. It's good for 4 hours at room temperature, 4 days in the fridge, and then get this, actually 4 months in the freezer. Now you would be especially careful also if you have a premature baby. Sometimes it would be more like 3-3-3 if you're premature, just because sometimes premature babies have a little extra stuff, that just a little extra tender loving care. Another thing that I want to mention is for freezing. Once you freeze your milk, okay, and you defrost it, you have to use it within 1 day. You cannot refreeze it again. Never refreeze your human milk. This is just a huge contamination risk, okay? So we have those. Oh, and one really good thing too is if you have a cooler, I really like the Medela milk cooler. I actually have it in my store as well. If you haven't checked out mommydidyouknow.com, I have a store in there and it has a really nice cooler. And if you have it in the cooler, it's actually good for 12 hours, especially if you have little outings and you want to make sure your milk is safe for your baby. The cooler works fantastic. Now it's really important to have these in your brain and just kind of have it kind of automatic, because you never know when you're going to have to store your milk for a while, and it's just really great to have. Just some pro tips also. Me, sometimes I would pump at night, and this is kind of my little secret tip, but what I actually had, I'm like, all right, so my milk is good for 12 hours with a cooler. And by the time I was kind of pumping maybe twice during the night, later on in my pumping, what I would do is I would actually have the cooler and I would put the milk inside the cooler. That way I didn't even have to get out of the bed really, because towards the end of my pumping, by the end of my breastfeeding, the baby wasn't really eating, and for me, I make the most milk at night, so I didn't really want to get rid of those pumping sessions because I liked having those reserves, especially being me that I worked really long hours as a nurse, 12 hours, so I would still keep those night feedings. So that's a really pro tip. Even though your baby might not be eating at night, it's still really good to pump at least once, just until you have a pretty good stash. Just because those night feedings, I don't know about you, but for me, I made the most at nights. And then I just also want to talk about some of my personal tips for keeping your milk as safe as possible. Number 1 is keep your milk in the fridge as far back as possible. The reason is because if you're storing your milk in your fridge and you're opening and closing that door, and your milk is right there in the front, of course the temperature is not as controlled. But if you keep it as far back in the fridge, I'm thinking crib, I'm already thinking baby sleeping. But if your milk is as far back in the fridge as possible, at least you can control a lot more. And then another thing is keep your cans of formula in a cabinet that you don't open as much. This helps to prevent the spread of contaminants as well. Number 3, remind others to wash their hands when they're preparing milk. Sometimes, you feel kind of bad. Oh, they're doing me a favor. They're feeding the baby for me. No, your baby's safety is top priority. So make sure that you are reminding others as well to wash their hands when they're preparing your child's milk or they're feeding your baby. Number 4, definitely check for the expiration dates on your formula and educate the caregivers that you have to do the same as well. Some people, they're like, oh, it's a can of formula, let me just pop it open and put it in and it's fine. But no, you want to make sure to check the expiration dates. Also, the ones in the hospital, even the pre-made ready ones have expiration dates as well. So even though the hospital is giving you formula, don't assume that it's good. We check it as we go on, but of course it's good to double check. That's how we catch these things, is by double checking. So make sure that you're checking. Another tip, number 5, this actually kind of might sound funny, but this was something that I figured out. So take a little bit of your milk, like about an ounce or so of your pumped milk, and set it out overnight so that you know that it's gonna kind of be foul after. And then do a smell test and make a mental note of what your milk smells like when it's not that good anymore. And then at least that way, when you do smell test with your other milk, you'll know this is what my milk smelled like. So actually, that's a really cool tip that not a lot of people know about. Do the smell test. Put a little bit of milk out, know what it smells like if it's bad, and then at least you'll be used to it. And then number 6, if your child is refusing a feeding, don't just force it. Sometimes you might be rejecting the spoiled milk taste, so just see if it's something else besides you start, forcing, take it. Sometimes it just might simply be spoiled milk. So if your child is refusing your milk, try to just do a little smell test, just check it again. You might even want to taste it yourself if you're into that, and then don't freak out if you find that your child had spoiled milk. That's my number 7, because it happens. Humans make mistakes, and that's why pencils have erasers. It's kind of one of my favorite things. But wash their mouth out, keep an eye out for fever, vomiting, diarrhea. If symptoms continue, you can always call your pediatrician, but don't freak out. We're all moms, and I'll let you in a secret. We've